Hello and welcome to the Art Podcast with me, Chris Stafford. Well, this week we are going to go to Florence for a change. Now, we've got someone joining us from Florence who's actually herself travelled a long way from near Melbourne, Australia. She's an export herself, just like me, and she now is residing in Florence and has, I think, had a wonderful, it sounds idyllic career. Hannah Sutton, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
It sounds like the perfect journey that you've made as an artist.
It definitely looks that way. I think especially people have a very idyllic view of Florence in their minds, and the idea of like living in Florence and living in Italy and being a painter, it's definitely a very romantic ideal for a lot of people. But it is a lot of work. There's a lot of hard work that has come, that has been done to like get here for sure. But yeah, it's I cannot complain. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to live here.
It sounds like I say, the perfect situation for you. Do you feel you're where you need to be, want to be? You've kind of arrived in terms of your career.
Definitely, I definitely feel that I have arrived and am settling into the work that I feel that I need to be making at this moment of my life. Yes.
And like I said, you are a transplant, just like me. But you've gone along further. You come from near Melbourne, just northwest of Melbourne. Yeah, not far out of Melbourne, is it? Or away?
Yeah, in Australia, far is fairly relative. Like it's about 250 kilometres from Melbourne, where I was born and raised on a farm, and then so fairly close. Melbourne was the nearest big city to our family farm, and then I lived in Melbourne for about 10 years.
Oh, you did. Well, let's go back to Sonano, the farm. Were your parents still farming? Are they there? Still?
Yes. My parents and my grandmother still lives on the farm, so they're still there.
And you grew up there with your younger sister, Naomi. What kind of childhood did you have? Did you have to roll up your sleeves and get to work every day as a child?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're like, we had 3 generations living on the farm near St. Arnaud, a little hamlet, like a farming community called Logan. And there's the farming families there are all multi-generational farming families. So we've been there for quite a few generations. And so I grew up with my grandparents and my mum and dad and my sister and me, and we're all farming, we're all working on the farm, although like we're very much used to, helping out dad if he needed us to drive the ute up the paddock, or even driving tractors and things like that, or driving the forklift around to move things in the shed, helping to herd sheep or move sheep around, that type of thing. However, definitely my parents noticed that my sister and I were quite studious and really encouraged us to study and pursue our studies and to go to university. That was probably a really big generational difference. In previous generations of the family, we were all quite like very, very hard workers. And luckily, my parents really encouraged my sister and myself to pursue our studies. So I think from a young age, we probably realized that we could get out of some farm work if we said that we had an assignment due or something like that. So,
what kind of farming? You mentioned sheep there. Was there anything else that you farmed?
Yeah, we had sheep, both for like prime lambs for meat and also like merino sheep for wool. So the wool industry is still going, and also grain, like cereal grain. So many, many different types of cereal grain that we would have as well. So a little bit of both.
Yeah, I've got a picture here. 2 daughters on a sheep farm near Melbourne. It takes me right back to McLeod's Daughters. And if anybody has ever watched that show,
drama TV show.
Right. Yeah, it's a really successful Australian TV drama. McLeod's Door, Drovers was the farm, right? And McLeod's Door.
Yeah.
Did you watch it? Did you watch Drovers?
It's so funny. I didn't. Because when you grow up on a farm and everything is farming, you are not interested at all in other farming stories. I couldn't watch McLeod's Daughters because it's just too close to home. You know, it was funny because my cousins and who grew up in Geelong, like a nearby city, and Swan Hill, you know, they grew up in the city. They were much more enthusiastic about farming things than we were. My sister and I we couldn't wait to go to the city and to embrace like other things that didn't have anything to do with farming. We were really interested in stuff like that because we were living on the farm. And so I was constantly dreaming when I was growing up about being an artist and doing something else. And it's funny how now I'm a really long way away from the farm. It's very, very dear to me, and I'm a lot more nostalgic and sentimental about it because I'm so far away. But it's funny, when you're growing up in it, you don't know what you have. You don't appreciate. You just want to get out and explore the world. Yeah.
Yeah, get away from it. Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? You know, and it's good that obviously that your parents encouraged you both to do whatever you wanted to do and pursue academia. But the drawing and the sketching with you, the artwork started very young, didn't it? Tell us about how it began, because you don't have any other artists in the family necessarily with a paintbrush.
No, I did. Well, I have to give credit to some of my family, especially my dad, who actually he was the only son he had two other sisters. So as the only son, he took over the farm, the family farm, and he has been farming his whole life and only has recently shifted away from that. But he was the kind of person, he would take up drawing lessons and drawing classes. He would go to life drawing classes, and he was the first person. My dad was actually the first person who introduced me to like life drawing classes. And accidentally, there was one time when we were going to life drawing classes, and he was like, I really wanted to go with him because I really like drawing people, and I was always like every kid. Most kids love art and enjoy drawing and are only encouraged not to do it if somebody tells them that they're bad at it. And I was lucky that I wasn't told that I was bad at it. I think I had just enough natural talent that people were really encouraging of my drawing, even though I was growing up in a farming community. And there was Alex Lyle, who was an artist in St. Arnaud, and there was enough artists in St. Arnaud that there was like a small artist community, and they were doing like drawing classes, life drawing classes. And my dad would go, and he absolutely loved life drawing. But they were all clothed, like there were models, but they were all clothed. And then I asked to go along with him. And I think I was 12 or 13 at the time. And I'd come along with my dad to the life drawing class. And little did we know, it was the very first nude life drawing class that had ever been held in town. And when the model took her clothes off in the town hall, and everybody's gathered around to draw this nude figure, I think my dad went so red and he hid behind the easel and he said to me, like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I was taking my 12-year-old daughter to a life drawing class, like a nude life drawing class. He was absolutely mortified. And he was like, the body, he said something, he was trying to make it okay because he didn't want to take me home. He was like, everybody is, the body is like a sculpture. It is an artwork, and we're going to look at it as a work of art. And because that's all it is. It's just a body, and we'll view it as a work of art, and don't overthink it. Don't think of it as any more than that. And after that, I loved drawing the figure. I thought it was so much fun, and I was really encouraged by everybody. Thought it was great that there was somebody who was many years younger than the youngest person. The next youngest person was an adult. And so they thought it was great somebody as young as me was coming along to life drawing classes. And I just kept going. But it was my dad actually that took me to the first one.
Well, good for him, handling it in the way he did, so sensitively and objectively, without traumatizing you as a 12-year-old, because it could have been a negative experience. So good for him, the way he handled it.
Yeah. And good for him, especially as like a farmer who has only daughters and who was always quite sensitive about that type of thing. And he couldn't have handled that any better, I don't think. I think he framed for me a very, very positive view of the human body from a very young age.
That's awesome. That's your dad, Lee. But how about your mum, Sue? Was she in any way interested in arts and crafts?
My mum has an amazing sense of humor and is a very creative person when it comes to like drama and amazing writing skills, but not necessarily like drawing or like any like hand kind of crafts, but definitely as somebody, she actually grew up in Canada and a little bit in England as well. I have an English grandfather and they traveled a lot. And so I think her view of the world, having come back to Australia as an adult and married a farmer and living on the farm, she definitely, instead of imbuing in me like an artist kind of mindset, she definitely gave me the spirit of adventure and like traveling the world, and that all of that was possible. So I think she helped in that way.
What kind of things did you do with your mum?
That's a great question. I think most of the time me and my sister and my mum would just be very silly and laugh a lot and make jokes about things and put on silly accents or pretend to be silly characters and basically have like a impromptu comedy skit going at any time. So that was our house. We were a pretty silly household and we laughed a lot and we didn't take a lot seriously when we were growing up.
How about music?
Yeah, music. Yes, I did. I liked playing. I was kind of like, you have to pick an instrument when you're a kid. And I think when you're a kid, this is a terrible thing. You're like forced to play an instrument. And mine was piano. And I felt like I was obliged to play piano, and I really loved piano, but I had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with it because I was very scared of exams and songs that I was like forced to learn, that type of thing. I really didn't like that. I liked learning music from ear. And when I was a teenager, I had a really big stage where I was like really into like punk rock music, and I played the guitar very badly.
How about singing? Were you a family that sang together?
Not really. No. We were a lot more like most of us, my dad and my sister and myself, we drew. We enjoyed drawing or illustrating things. So that was a little bit more of our jam. We had so many pieces of work on the walls. We had like a salon kind of hang, and our walls were so full of art that it went all the way up to the ceiling. We had so many paintings and drawings and things like that on the walls. Like that was our household, which is really weird for a farmhouse.
Yeah, it seems like the indoors was very different to the outdoors.
Yeah. I think we were a household that very much encouraged you to make things. I had friends who would visit me as an adult. I would bring friends back to the farm, and they would look around and there is nothing from as far as the eye can see. It's very flat. There's just gum trees and paddocks and sheep. And it's very, very quiet because there's almost no other. You can basically only see the other farmhouse, like in the distance, and that's about it. And you know this. You've been to Australia. You know how isolated parts of Australia can be, and this is really isolated. And it's very quiet. There's a quiet that almost presses down on you at night. It's so quiet, and most people, they look around and they're like, what do you do here? What is there to do? Because they're so used to being able to go to the movies or go to a bar or go to a restaurant, and you can't do any of that. You have to make stuff for yourself. Always. If you want to be entertained, you have to make it. And we really weren't a TV family. It really wasn't encouraged to watch television or watch. And so we made stuff, and you had to think of a project and work on that project. So we were all, when I was asked once to help my dad, we were mixing grain, and I was supposed to wait underneath the silos and mix grain. And I scratched a poem into every single silo, a verse of a poem. I would just keep myself entertained. And the poem is still there. It's Clancy of the Overflow by Banjo Patterson. I would just scratch things in, or like draw things. There's things that I basically graffitied all around the farm, just like drawing things or making little projects for myself. You invent things. And so your brain from a very young age is like, you make stuff. And that's how you keep yourself entertained.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's actually something that is dying now, of course, especially in the cities. The children would have a very different growing up experience to that. But I love that. I mean, I'm from an agricultural background, so I totally relate to that. And because you were on a sheep farm, presumably you rode.
I love that you asked that question. Actually, since my grandfather's time, my pa, we haven't had horses on the farm. Yeah, you might be terribly disappointed to hear this.
I'm very disappointed.
Yeah,
Hannah.
I'm sorry. My pa would say, horses bite one end and kick the other.
Yeah, I know. But they're very useful for rounding up sheep.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we had a ute and lots of sheepdogs. And so you have like at least one sheepdog, but we usually, at the peak of farming, we had several sheepdogs. So, yeah.
So you grew up with the working dogs?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But no riding then? No riding.
No riding, no motorbikes. I think it was that, in generations previous to mine, there were just too many accidents. And so it was just thought of to have a four-wheel vehicle, and let the sheepdogs do a lot of the work, or be on foot. Yeah.
How many sheepdogs did you have at any one time?
Well, my pa, is a really wonderful thing that my pa would do, is that he bred sheepdogs, and he realized how much my sister and I loved having puppies around and how happy we were. Honestly, some of the happiest memories of my life is holding a bundle of puppies. And he purposely would breed puppies. They had maybe three litters or so of them, three lots of puppies over the years. And, we would have quite a few, 3, 5, 6 dogs at some points in time, usually 2 or 3 dogs, but then there would always be puppies as well. Yeah, it was very...
And the worst thing is when they have to leave home, of course.
Yeah, yeah. And then some of them, though, would be bought by neighbouring farms. And so when those farmers would come and, and a farmer arrives and, a farmer you'd pull in and visit each other's farms quite frequently, like checking in and things. And you would always have all the dogs on the back, 2 or 3 dogs. And some of those dogs would be our dogs, all grown up, working dogs. And you'd ask how they were doing, and you'd kind of check in with them, and they'd remember you, and you'd be very proud of them if they were good dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a wonderful community and lifestyle for sure. Do you miss it?
Yeah, as I was saying, it feels I'm much more sentimental about it now, because life is so different here, and you are trying to assimilate in a new country. And, I've applied last year for my Italian citizenship, and I married an Italian man. And so like life here, like I'm embracing like my Italian life here. Yeah, I've been here for 9 years. And so it's important to me that I'm respectful of the culture and the country that I live in, that I reside in. But yeah, you always draw comparisons back to your roots. You always say, whenever you see something that you find new or you're trying to make sense of when you're living in a new country, you have to compare it to what you grew up with, right? You're always going, well, how is this different? And you're trying to make sense of it all of the time, which is something that we do. And so, yeah, I grow a lot more sentimental about, all of the positive things that I totally took for granted. The isolation and the quiet and the dry heat and the droughts and how, the kind of how precious some resources were, or all of the dogs, all of those things that you totally take for granted, or you want to get away from when you're a young adult. You want to move away from it and go and explore other things. But then the things that I find absolutely amazing and really special and unique now.
I wonder how much you see of your family.
I try to go back every year. And this year they're coming to me. They're visiting here.
How do they feel about their daughter, who's obviously, Hannah, I mean, I look at your work and I talk to artists all the time, as you know, but you're enormously talented. And I'm wondering, that young girl from the farm in Victoria, transplanted to Florence in a completely different lifestyle and hugely successful, obviously, what you do as a painter and a teacher as well. That couldn't be more of a contrast. I'm wondering how culturally you adjusted.
I think luckily I moved at a time where I truly felt ready as a person, as a young adult, to move. Like I was really ready for change. And so I moved here when I was 27, and I had already studied and established myself in Melbourne in the vocation that I had initially. I had another creative. I studied design, and I was working as a designer and illustrator in Melbourne. I had my own business, and I felt confident enough that I was ready to move to another country. And sometimes in life you feel like you're really ready for another chapter, and I felt really ready to embrace another chapter of my life. And I had known about the Florence Academy of Art for many years when I was a very young adult, and I had wanted to go. And so I had set my sights on that for a long time and worked my way up towards it. So I felt so ready to be here, and mentally had been planning it and prepared to take the leap for quite a long time. It wasn't a sudden decision. And it was also, I felt that if I didn't try to make a big shift like that at this particular point in my life, then I was never going to make it. That I would easily, there's so many things in our adult life that tie us down. We can have family or children or a mortgage or a really intense career that we feel very stable in, and we don't want to shake that up. And I had a feeling that looking at the way that everybody else's lives moved, I was like, if I don't do it now in my late 20s, I probably won't do this at all. Or I'm going to need to wait until I'm, retired or something to make that move. So I made it, and I never, ever had any second thoughts about it. I didn't look back. It felt ready. And as soon as I got here, I made myself home. I settled, I nested. I think some people don't like to do that, but I'm very much the type of person where the second I get somewhere, I try to settle, as in I make I make my home as comfortable as possible, and I find relationships and I find connections with people, and I find connections with people down the street, like at my local areas that I go to, and it's really important. And maybe this is the small town person. Like, I'm not a city person, I'm a little country town person, and I still behave that way. And I try to make a little community as much as possible, like knowing your neighbors and things like that. And I think that makes a big difference, and it really makes a difference to how people behave around you and how comfortable or connected you feel in wherever you are in the world.
I'm wondering, if we're going back to, you went from primary school in St Arnaud to the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, correct? In Melbourne. How did you make those decisions and choices as to your career path at that, what kind of education, what college you wanted to go to before you went to Florence?
Right. Good question. I was very studious in order to avoid doing farm work, of course. I didn't want to drove any sheep. I was doing my homework. No, I was very studious, and I really wanted to go to university. I wanted to go and study in Melbourne, and I wanted to be an artist. And I remember telling my parents that initially I think I told them that I wanted to be a musician, and they were immediately like, we need to redirect her passions into something that might pay the bills. And so they were much more encouraging about me choosing a profession. They were like, we love that you want to be an artist, but we also think it's a good idea if you maybe go to university to study something that is very creative, but can, help to pay the bills, basically. And so I went into graphic design first. And I studied graphic design at RMIT, or communication design. And then I spent, when I graduated, I not only had my own client base, but I worked at a place called Graphico, which is a graphic design studio in Melbourne, and they were wonderful. And then eventually I made my own. I set up my own little business and had my own client base, practically in order to save more money to get to the Florence Academy of Art. But yeah, I kind of was driven into that particular profession because I was encouraged to do something that was a little bit more secure and stable as far as a vocation was concerned. And that for me was fine. I enjoyed the challenge of trying to get into RMIT because it was a very competitive university program at the time, and had a very competitive it was a portfolio application. So you had to have a really strong portfolio to get in. And I was obsessed with that at the time. So that was a total dream come true. And I absolutely loved being a designer, and I loved being in the big city. And I thought that was really exciting. And it was a whole new world. And I was like a country girl, a farm girl from a little, from the middle of nowhere. And I absolutely loved suddenly finding myself in the middle of this big city. I thought it was such an adventure. I just I was very naive. I didn't know anything about how to catch a tram or take the train or anything like that. I had no idea how anything worked. And I had to figure it out by making pretty spectacular mistakes, but it was great. It was, I found it really exciting. And then I did design. And then after a few years working as a graphic designer, I met somebody who'd come back from the Florence Academy of Art, and he was an artist named Richard Payne. He lives in Daylesford now. He's an artist who's still practicing, doing a little bit more abstract work now. But he was just drawing, did the drawing program, and he had come back, and I met him because I was friends with his son, and we were at a barbecue at their house, and he was showing everybody his drawings, his master copies that he was making. And when I saw when I saw that work, and I was, working as a graphic designer and kind of wasn't doing as much art as I really wanted to be doing, and felt like that was part of my life that I had put on the back burner, and was a little bit disappointed with myself for not really making as much art as I wanted to be making. And then when I saw Richard Payne's master copy drawings that he had done at the Florence Academy, it was like an invitation from the universe. They were the most beautiful drawings I had ever seen. I got goosebumps looking at them. It was like chills. It was a really like incredibly physical experience where looking at this work, and I thought, okay, I have to, this is a pivotal moment. I'm being called. I absolutely have to do exactly that. That is exactly what I need to be doing with my life. And basically made a promise from that moment that I would do whatever it took until I got there, and did exactly that. So I was very inspired by him.
That was the catalyst then.
Yeah, it was.
And how did you make it happen?
I was very embarrassed about it at first, because I didn't want to. I basically quietly told him, like, I also would very much like to go to the academy, and I think it's really, really great. And would you maybe teach me something about what you learnt there? And so he lived in Daylesford and I lived in Melbourne. And so he was like, sure, come over to the studio and I'll teach you some things about drawing that I learnt. And I would go there on weekends, and I was working as a graphic designer. So I would drive all the way to Daylesford on the weekends, and we would do like life drawing classes. He would teach me life drawing. He would teach me some of the techniques that he learned when he was there. And he was always like, I'm going to be very, very strict with you on this, because the academy is incredibly strict, and it's very, very competitive, and it's very, very serious. And I'm not going to, if you want that experience, then I'm not going to let up on you. But he was so kind and so nice the entire time. We had a great fun drawing together. And I would have to, there's so few life drawing models available that I would have to find somebody to model for us, drive them all the way from Melbourne. They would come with me and we would draw together. And that's how I started to learn. And it took me 5 years to save the money and to put together my portfolio to be accepted into the academy.
Well, that must have been like a very disciplined time, but ambition-driven.
Yeah. I mean, yes, definitely. But I think when you really, really want something, when you're like, I absolutely must have this thing, I know that there's no other excuse. Like you just start. You start doing it. Like I would prefer, I know plenty of my friends, they'd do really fun things over the weekend. They'd do all sorts of amazing and really fun things. And I was going to Daylesford and like drawing for the weekend. And that was the thing that I did. And in the meantime, I was like working around the clock, because as a 20-something-year-old, you don't necessarily know how to, you don't necessarily value your time that much. And being a farm girl, I was just like, well, I'm just going to work my butt off. And so I worked the rest of the time like a crazy person to save up.
How did you know? I mean, obviously saving up as well by working as hard as you did, and you get to a point where you were financially ready to move, but also with your artwork. At what point did you think your portfolio was like, okay, this is ready? Were you told, did he tell you, oh, this is good enough now, you could submit this?
Not really. I think I was just keeping an eye on the applications and things. And I thought, oh, the applications are open now and they're going to close at a certain point. And I think I should do it. Like it just reached a threshold where I thought, okay, I'm going to be ready. And I remember having a panic attack when I submitted my application, because I was very, very afraid that I wasn't good enough and my portfolio wasn't strong enough to get in, because I knew how competitive it was. And so I pressed submit and then like curled up into a ball on the floor in my apartment, being like, I've made a terrible mistake. I've just thrown years of drawing down the drain because they're not going to accept what I have made. And they did, and it was fine. But there was definitely there was a feeling that I wasn't ready because when you have that much of a build-up, like a 5-year build-up, you kind of get settled into this frame of mind that you're like, it's still in the future and you're not going to be ready yet. And then, yeah, the lead up is too slow.
Yeah, I can imagine. But tell me the story of when you did get accepted and how it came to you. Was it email?
It was an email, yeah. I wish it was like Harry Potter and an owl delivered it through, my window, my fireplace. That would have been awesome. But yeah, I got an email that said that I was accepted. And I think, yeah, just this tremendous feeling of relief and thanks to the universe for accepting it and that all of that work was worth it. But then like I hadn't actually done anything yet. I hadn't made anything. Like the work was just about to begin. So I had to like pack up my life in Australia. I sold most of my possessions, my car, everything. And then I left for Florence.
And what other mediums were you working in at that time then, Hannah, besides the work you knew that you needed to get into the academy?
Yeah, I was working mostly in charcoal. So I was doing a lot of like figurative drawings in charcoal. That was my thing specifically. And I had I was making and selling work in charcoal that it was like figures or nudes or like draped figures in charcoal. So I was really comfortable in the charcoal medium, really comfortable drawing. But I hadn't really painted in oils until I actually came and was trained, which was probably for the best. But I was actually taking quite a big leap of faith, signing up to and spending my life savings on a painting program, having only drawn.
Right. A big change there. Lots of changes all happening at once. And now, I'm guessing mostly, is it exclusively oils?
Yeah, I mean, I still, everything you can see, because I'm in my studio at the moment, everything you can see here is painted in oils, either on linen or on wood panel. But I also still draw. I mean, drawing, very much being a classical realist painter, drawing is the foundation of everything. So I still draw in pencil and in charcoal.
Do you pinch yourself when you say, I'm a classical realist painter and I'm at the Florence Academy of Art? Is that still a pinch me moment, Hannah?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes it's like, no, you can't say that. I think maybe this is like something that you do as a woman, that you're like, you shouldn't be allowed to say that sometimes, or it seems a little bit too much to say. But no, I own that now. I have, it has been a huge amount of work and a very long time coming. So yeah, it is still though an out-of-body experience sometimes to say, yes, now I am a classical realist painter.
And you must be obviously on a different level of confidence to what you were, 9 years ago when you arrived in Florence. When you go to work every day teaching, obviously you totally own and who you've become and what you've achieved as an artist as well. But in terms of women artists, because we know what it looked like historically and compared to men. And one of the reasons I did the show, the main reason I did the show, is to elevate women artists, because we know that they have not been elevated in the way that men have historically. I'm wondering if you have a sense, whilst you're at the academy, in the one of the most famous art academies in the world, you have a sense of your place in history now and what you can achieve as a mentor for other women artists as well. Do you have a sense of of your position and the importance of your role there now, because you're so accomplished and, you've achieved so much yourself, but you're also giving back to the community of women artists, particularly?
Well, I have to say first, thank you for the work that you're doing in making sure that you put a spotlight on women artists. I think that what I'm seeing is that this type of shift with more women artists or women artists becoming more prevalent in the world, in the art world, was inevitable because women are incredibly creative and love learning and love teaching. And so they're very nurturing, they're very enthusiastic about learning. And so I think that now we have more of an even the most even playing field that there ever has been in this particular moment in history, that we're actually seeing more women being painters and sculptors and also instructors and going straight for getting the highest possible level of training. And most of the time, the people who come through the academy is that we have a much higher percentage of women coming to train, and that all of the people who come to train here are adults, and they are either professional artists or they are coming back to retrain or improve their skills, and most of them are practicing artists, and they're overwhelmingly women. So this is, I think, if you allow everybody, or if you allow as many people as possible, and especially with who have the privilege to be able to come to a place like Italy, of course, and they have the financial ability to be able to come and to receive training abroad, then there are so many women who are wanting to take that up. And so I think I'm lucky to be born at the time that I was. I look at, let's say, if I specifically look at Australia, and I think about the Australian artists in the 19th century, the late 1890s, let's say, when Australian Impressionism, Australian art was really on the up and up and starting to get a lot of international attention, that there are a lot of women painters who are working really, really, really hard and never received the same kind of attention that their male counterparts ever did, even though the quality of their work was incredible, and that they still got commissions and they were incredibly active in their communities and things like that, but they could only go so far because society wouldn't actually allow them to. And I'm just in an incredible position of privilege where, though I have worked for it, that I'm actually at a moment in history where I'm actually able to go as far as I want to go, off my own merit, and I can work towards that goal if I want it. So I can't say that I'm just really special because I'm just born at a lucky time. I wasn't born in the 1890s.
I'm wondering which artists, when you were younger then, at the beginning of all this and getting inspired to have a career as an artist and not just a graphic artist, who were the artists that were inspiring you? Whose work did you admire?
So I have to say, I know a lot of people. I meet a lot of people who have an incredible art education or have an incredible education when it comes to art history from a young age. I wasn't really introduced into museums and art museums and things like that. It wasn't, I knew we would maybe go and see the Archibald Prize, the very big portrait painting prize that's on in Australia, that's still running in Australia over 100 years. But we really didn't go to the museums. Instead, the art that I was exposed to was some Australian Impressionist painters, because they have a very special place. Australian Impressionism has a very special place in the hearts of the farming communities in Australia. And so every farm, just about, I could bet money that any farmhouse that you walk into in country Australia has a print of an Australian Impressionist on their wall. It's usually one of two paintings, Down on His Luck, which shows a swagman like looking at a fire alone in the bush, in the Australian bush, or it might be Shearing the Rams by Tom Roberts, another Australian painter, and just a shearing picture, like a beautiful picture of shearers shearing the sheep in an old shearing shed in the 1800s. And those two pictures just captured the imagination of the farming communities in Australia, and everybody had a print, and including obviously my family. And it was those pictures that were in my head, as like, and when I was growing up, they were like the best painters ever, and they were the best paintings that could ever be. And they were really good paintings. I still look at them and I'm amazed by them. They're beautiful.
At what point did you develop your own style then, when you did switch to oils?
I mean, the training program at the Florence Academy of Art is very rigorous, and it teaches you the fundamentals of drawing and painting as a craft skill. So you're learning and all of the a very well-established toolkit of how to draw and paint in a classical style, in a classical way, and you're learning like the correct techniques, how to correctly use paint, like how much paint to use, how much medium to mix into the oil paint, or how to grind your own paint and prepare your own materials, and all of that gives you like a baseline for how to work with the medium correctly. On top of that, if you're just chasing the right, like objectively right thing to be doing when it comes to the drawing or when it comes to the painting, I think your natural style emerges, because we all just have, like handwriting, we all just have a natural way of making a mark, and we can't help it. And that just ends up being your style. It just, how you hold the brush, how you put the mark down, you actually can't help it. It was never intentionally developed. It was just having a really thorough training of how to use the materials, and then it comes out all by itself. And that happened, like I would say in my third year, it really felt like that had started to come out. And then now I'm working on subject matter of my own choosing and making works of my own choosing, and exploring ways to describe nature in paint. It comes out even more.
Do you paint Australian landscapes at all? Do you ever have that image in your mind of, sheep shearing in the barn and think, I need to create one of those and send it back home?
Yeah, totally. I actually just finished a commission where somebody asked me to make a painting of the neighbouring farm. And so our neighbours who are also farmers, and I made a big painting of the farmstead of our next door neighbours, and it was really beautiful idea. This Nathan Grigg, he wanted to propose to one of the farmer's daughters on that farm, the Coombses farm, and he really wanted to ask for her hand, but he knew she wanted to choose her ring, so he thought, I'm going to get a painting made of her favourite place in the world. And so he asked me to, having known the farm very well, he asked me to make a painting of it, and that was really special. And that was actually the first time that I'd made a major painting of Australia, specifically of the land.
I love that. Take us back to when you actually graduated from the academy and found your position permanent position here as an instructor. Was this something that you think, as you were going through the academy as a student, thinking maybe I could, get a job here and stay here forever?
Just maybe, yeah. I definitely, they have in the third year, but when you start coming to the end of your third year, they have an opportunity that arises. It's called the fourth year prize, or it was colloquially known as the fourth year prize. And it's a fourth year graduate and residency program that they offer to 3 or 4 painters or new graduates from the advanced painting program, and they get to stay for 1 year at the academy, and they get a bit of experience teaching in the program as well, and they have studio access, and they get to make their own work for a year. And I was very lucky because it was just after COVID and like 2021, and I was very, very lucky that actually a lot of people were like, I really just want to go home. This has been a really hard. They weren't allowed to go home, or I won't go into that. We were all locked down for a very long time, and a lot of people wanted to go home, but I really wanted to stay because I had met the love of my life, my husband, my now husband Alessandro, and he was here, and he's from Florence, and we were living together, and we definitely wanted to stay. And I thought, there would be no 2 better things in this world than to be able to stay with him and to be able to work at this place that I love so much. And so after the 4th year prize, I did my very best, and I made it very, very clear to the academy that I wanted to stay, and I was here to stay. And I think that helps when you express very clearly your intentions, right? And you say, I love it here. I want to stay, and I want to do what I can. And then people are aware then, and they might make things more possible for you. And I think that I got lucky, but I maybe was in the right place at the right time. But also I worked really hard, and they obviously like what I did, and I was offered a teaching position at the end of my residency, and so I stayed.
And at that point, you must have felt that you had really landed. You'd landed the love of your life and the job of your life.
Yeah. I was absolutely on cloud 9, cloud 10. Like it could. I thought I had a dream come true moment of being able to graduate. Even though that happened at the end of COVID, it was kind of extra difficulty or difficulty level, like extra hard at the end there. But it was even better to be able to stay because I really wanted to, and to get that opportunity to teach, and it was I've been super lucky. I've also managed. I have a studio here as well, so that's been really awesome.
At what point did you start selling your work? Was it as a student or even before then while you were in Australia?
Yeah, I was selling my work even before I went to the academy, but even though I didn't make a lot of shows, like I didn't exhibit my work very much, but I was really lucky that when I did exhibit my work, it was really well supported and really well received, and I got positive feedback from people that they liked what I was doing, and they wanted to buy it, which was very encouraging. And when I was studying, I would sometimes send work back to Australia and have it exhibited in local shows, and it was also really well received. And so, especially by my local community, I did even go back in 2023, and I had a solo show at a gallery in my hometown, and it felt as if the entire town showed up for me to be there. And my work, everything sold out. Everything sold. And it was absolutely wonderful. It was a dream come true. I think that was I don't think I'll ever have a better show than that one, because it was exactly where I grew up, and it was the people who encouraged me to make the work and who had followed the journey. And it's a farming community, right? You don't expect people to be art collectors there. And they showed up and they bought paintings, and it was absolutely wonderful. That was the absolute best, because a lot of people say things like you can't be a hero in your hometown, and that maybe, you know, people aren't interested if you're trying to make like art and you're from a place that isn't particularly, well, it's a fairly rural community, but no, actually the opposite. People are really enthusiastic about it, and they're really wonderful supporters, and that's really amazing. Yeah, it's really special.
Well, the people that mean the most to you, and that's validation right there, isn't it? I imagine you really felt that everything that you were working towards, and the recognition, of course, we all need validation, right, at some point, but that seems to me that you've gone the full circle there, and all of it was worthwhile. Was there any point maybe when you graduated and that you questioned whether you'd actually make it professionally, make enough money as an artist to be a professional artist?
Totally. I think that's basically a rite of passage for any artist when they kind of learn how to do well, for me, I trained and I learned how to do the thing, and then it comes time to actually do the thing, and you don't have a curriculum anymore. You're not showing up to class. You have to show up to your studio, and you have to make work, and you have to decide what that work is going to be. And it's up to you to decide what it is. It's up to you to decide when you exhibit and where you exhibit and how much you sell it for. And nobody's telling you what to do. You don't have any deadlines. If you don't make it, nobody knocks on your studio door and is like, hey, that exhibition, where is it? Like, people for the first years, nobody's putting pressure on you to do that. And so also you're kind of terrified because you don't know how to use your voice yet. You haven't been really practicing how to use it other than for projects that are part of a school curriculum. And yeah, I tried to continue to paint and make some work, and a lot of that work just looked like some of it was experimental, and so I was just trying things out and taking risks and making kind of paintings that weren't necessarily always good. Some of them kind of failed, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put that in the cupboard and I'll never show anybody ever. And you have this kind of vicious like a voice in the back of your head going, oh, this is no good. You probably shouldn't. You should stop making that, or you should definitely make something a little bit better than that. And then other paintings that you make are probably a little bit more in line with the things that you were taught how to make, and your internal voice is like, well, this is good, this is better, you should be making this type of thing. And so you try to make some more of that, and it's very, very difficult because that particular, like, you can keep on a habit making the exact same work that you were trained how to make, or you could start making work that's more meaningful to you and risk for it to once again go back to learning and maybe making things that are not up to the level that you were trained. For example, like in the advanced painting program in the final year, you're spending 5 weeks on a single painting, and you're really you're trying to be as academic as possible. So you have a lot of model time. You have critiques every single day. People, these very, very experienced painters are coming by and giving you really, really helpful instruction. And so obviously you're making work that is really, really strong, and everybody around you is also there making really strong work and receiving the same critiques and showing up to the same class. And so it's amazing. And you suddenly get out of that world and you're all by yourself, and the model isn't there unless you book them in yourself and pay them yourself. And the work isn't, and there's nobody coming by to give you a critique every single day or twice a day or 4 times a day. So it's all up to you. And that's really, really hard. And I think that, and like everybody, I went through a good while, I would say a year or 2 of being really uncertain about exactly where I wanted to go with things and what I wanted to make.
How much of your time is spent, how do you divide your time between your instructing then at the academy and your own time in the studio now, Hannah?
Yeah, good question. We deliver 7 short courses a year, because I'm the program director of the 5-week intensive course in drawing, painting, and art history. And that 5-week intensive course is delivered. We have 7 of them every year. Now we have 8 of them a year. And so while those courses are being run, I'm instructing 2.5 days a week. And then I'm in my studio the rest of the time. But then when the courses are not running, I'm in here doing, like, I have a lot more time to spend on my art. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of each. And also I run very seasonally. So in the wintertime, I'm in my studio more often. I'm doing things like still life painting and portrait painting while the weather's kind of cold. And then when it's springtime or early summer, I'm outdoors, because I like painting on plein air. Like I like to be out and about. Yeah.
You're in Italy. You're in Florence. You have to, right?
Exactly.
How much of your work is commissioned then now?
Oh, I mean, I'm definitely taking on an increasing amount of commissions, and it just because the inquiries are coming in, and they might be for portraits and landscapes, or figures in portraits in a landscape, or in an area, like in a setting. But most of my work still is work that I choose to make, like a body of work that I choose to make. But yeah, a fair bit of my time at the moment is split between like making commissions, which is great as well.
And when you're not painting, what do you do for fun? Do you enjoy outdoor activities or sports, or what do you enjoy? Cooking?
I mean, yes, definitely being in Italy. Like, my husband is an amazing cook, being Italian, and so a lot of our life revolves around food and food preparation, or traveling a really long way to experience food, like a specific type of food. So the ritual of food is huge here. It's just part of life. It's a really important ritual, like making things from scratch, and that's really, really important. But yeah, I mean, he works in IT, and so he's very technologically minded and thinking about technology all the time. So I actually, I'm a bit influenced by him on this, but I actually game a bit. Like I might play some games on PlayStation, which might be an unexpected answer. But yeah, I mean, I don't have, I could probably say gaming or reading. I enjoy reading.
What's on your nightstand?
Oh, I'm really into, thanks to another artist friend who's introduced me to Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with Wolves. And she has a beautiful book called The Creative Fire as well. I thought that was it was 3 myths and legends about creativity. I found that really inspiring.
Well, I'm going to come back to the food now, because this is when you get to tell me who you're going to invite to your dinner party. 6 guests, living or dead. Who's coming to dinner?
Okay, so my list is the philosopher Alan Watts is one of my Sister Wendy, who's the nun, an art historian who was really big in the 90s, who just talks about art and paintings like nobody else. Also, I mispronounced Pinkola Estes, the author that I just mentioned. Pinkola Estes. I think I said mispronounced her name before. Claude Monet.
Everybody's dead.
Everybody is dead. Everybody has passed. I'm bringing everybody back to life because I thought that it would be very interesting to have conversations with all of them. I have questions for a lot. Oh, sorry. Camilla Pinkola Estes is still alive, I believe. So sorry that she's the only living. But Salvador Dali.
Oh, now why have you picked
and Ernest Shackleton? I wanted to pick Ernest because I feel like he is the one of the most his story of sailing to Antarctica and his story about the endurance, like his ship sinking into the ice, and how he managed to he managed to lead his whole crew to safety. It took many, many months. He got on a boat and came all the way back and then returned for them to pick them up, and nobody died. I just think that is the most incredible story of leadership. I think that's possibly one of the most amazing leaders I have ever heard of. And so I would love to ask him I would love him to share his story at dinner about what he had to endure. And also, I think he would really appreciate food, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Now, how did you choose the artists, Monet and Dali? That must have been a tough one, choosing of all the artists who you're familiar with now.
Yeah, I think Salvador Dali, because he. Even though he's certainly not in my circle of art, like he's not somebody that we talk about here at the Academy, because we talk about academic painters and draftsmen. So you expect maybe me to choose Velázquez or Dürer or as somebody Ang. Jerome, but no, I think Dali as a personality and for unexpected conversations and a fresh perspective, because he is a very inspiring kind of person and unexpected, and I think that's really refreshing to have that perspective at dinner. And Monet, because he's very humble. Like he spent a lot of his time as a painter, being really humbled by what he was trying to make, and having, and I think as well, many artists deeply connect and resonate with what he said, especially now with Instagram. You look at Instagram and you see everybody else's highlight reels and you see all the amazing art that everybody's making, and you go back and you struggle away with your own painting, and you don't maybe think what you're making is any good, and it's really hard. And Monet said something, in the 1900s, and he was like, everybody else is doing such great work, and here I am struggling away, making nothing very good. He said something like that. And he was just so... It was such a wake-up call, I think, to read a quote from Monet that was that. And then everybody, he's such a superstar now, and I don't think he's overrated at all. And he makes such beautiful work, and from what, especially me, I spend a lot more time now outdoors looking at light, trying to record a light effect. I really appreciate what Monet was trying to do, and I would love to talk to him at dinner.
So is this a formal dinner party or a kitchen supper?
Oh, well, I mean, in terms, it would have to be an Italian style, and we would have to, we start.
Al fresco.
Yeah, so but we would start a little bit in the kitchen because we would still be, there would be many, many courses, and we would start with little nibbles in the kitchen and then move to outside in the garden. So we would having a dinner for just around the golden hour and outside in the garden, and that would be the ideal, and multiple courses.
Yes. How many is the most you've had? I think I had 13 once. Was it more than 13 in Italy? I had 13. I think that was the most I had. Yeah. It went on all afternoon. It started as lunch and ended as dinner, but it was 13 courses.
That's impressive. I don't think, I mean, I had multiple courses at like a wedding before, but usually it's my suocera, my mother-in-law's Sunday lunches are so fantastic and abundant, and it starts off with like nibbles and wine in the kitchen while she's finishing preparing, and then you have like at least a couple of hours of lunch, and only four courses, but it's like really, really paced out, and there's like multiple things to choose from in every single course. And then it ends with, the grappa at the end, and it's a really special experience. You leave feeling like you will never need to eat again.
I know that feeling. I'm wondering what you're going to feed them, though. If you and Alexandra can cook for them, are you going to do everything? Are you going to prepare the whole meal? And
100%. I would probably put most of it on my husband. I get too stressed, Alessandra, because I get too stressed out trying to be hostess and to cook at the same time. So I think most things would need to be prepared in advance. But yeah. It would definitely involve some of our homemade pasta. And then because we live out in the countryside, we live just outside of Florence, and we have an olive grove, and a hunter will come and he will often shoot a wild boar. We often have cinghiale, the wild boar, and we make a really beautiful ragu. So homemade tagliatelle with ragu. With wild boar ragu would be a choice.
Can I come after dinner and just eat what's left over in the kitchen without anybody noticing?
Oh, I should have. Well, why didn't I list you on there, Chris? No. That would have been a great idea, wouldn't it?
I should have at the table. I'm quite happy coming into the kitchen after they've left.
100. Well, if I can have a seventh person, it's.
Well, that sounds a wonderful, wonderful dinner party, Hannah. Tell us before you go now what you're looking forward to this year and where your work is being exhibited, if anybody wants to find it, not just on your website, but if they are in Italy.
Okay. So, well, for now, we're just finishing up today an exhibition at the Florence Academy of Art. But actually, look out I am releasing an online catalogue at the end of the month. So if you are interested in seeing a collection of my work, then you can find that on my website, hannahsutton.art, and that will be available.
How else can they find you on social media? Just remind everybody.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. So you can find me at Hannah Sutton. And I'm also on Facebook at Hannah Sutton Art.
Hannah, I'll let you get back to your studio work. And I know we're recording in your afternoon there in Florence. Do you work late? Or does your hours vary? Is your husband used to you coming home at all hours?
I have to be home for dinner. That's important. The ritual of dinner time. That's very important. And it also works out fine because I work completely under natural light. So I'm like all of the light coming in here that you can see is all coming in from a skylight. So as soon as the light starts to go down, then I'm pack up for the day because I just work under the sun.
I love that. Yeah. Hannah, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here on the show. It's been a joy to get to know you, and I can still see that little girl that drove us, rounding up the sheep. all the way from Melbourne to Florence. You obviously made a wonderful career and extremely successful. So long may it continue. Good luck with everything you're doing. And thank you again for taking time to come on the show.
It has been delightful, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for this week. Do join us again in 2 weeks' time. In the meanwhile, look for us online at hollowellstudios.com and also where you'll find all the podcasts. And you can also find us on any podcast app. And if you want to watch the show, of course, if you're listening on your podcast app, don't forget to hop over to Women Uncensored on YouTube, where all our shows are in one channel. Thank you for listening.